Green light. Hello everybody, it's Lexi from Primos, and today I'm talking to you about a fanfic that I like to call a poetic tragic love story. This fanfic is probably the most underrated fanfic. It's top tier, right up there where Manifold is. It is deserving to be recognized just as much as Manifold. The way this fanfic took me on so many different levels of emotions and surprisingly just made me sob. Like, I sobbed. I was not expecting it to hit so hard because I didn't know the direction it was going. Being perceived in so many different ways that you don't know where the story will take you. And I think that's the most fascinating part about this one, because you really just don't know where it's going. And in the way it starts, it feels to me very much like it might not end well. And I kind of feared this. And I don't want to spoil it and say anything about the ending at all. But you are left the entire time trying to figure out, is this really going to end how you think it will end? Or will it end in a way that will totally surprise you? And it did such an amazing job taking you on that journey of trying to figure out if that's how it was going to go. Like, it did not disappoint. It really didn't. I wanted something that I wanted to read that was really going to touch my heart. This one touched my heart and it squeezed. It felt like multiple stories in one, but it didn't feel separate. It still felt very together. There's like about 3 parts in this fic. The beginning starts off with Draco Malfoy. Nobody knows where he's been for the last 8 years. He finally invites a reporter to come to his home and they do an interview together. And he decides to tell her the whole story about where he's been. And from there, it goes into the POV of Hermione. She basically is going through a time where she's dating this guy who's a big time politician. He's a prick. This man, I hate this man. Like, this man. I hate this man in this fic. Oh my god, his name is John Archibald. He's from a well-known family in New York, I believe it is. Or just in the US. His dad is William Archibald. He's, I think, Minister of Magic or something in America. Something important in America basically. So they moved to the UK to basically be involved in the politics in the Ministry of Magic. And he's running to be, I think, the Minister of something. I can't remember what it is. But he's an asshole. And he and Hermione have been dating for about like 2 years. And it's sad to see their dynamic because it doesn't feel like Hermione. It feels like she's just letting this man run all over her. Ugh, like it's not a good thing for her. It's a lot of gaslighting from this man. Like, it's disgusting. He doesn't treat her at all the way she should be treated. And she takes it, and it's sad because, like, you can't see Hermione just taking that shit from somebody. Just like, no, she's that witch, you know? Like, come on. And she's just in this disgusting relationship with him. And I feel like she's like trapped. She just doesn't know. She doesn't have anything else. It's been after the war. She's felt lonely because, you know, she obliviated her parents. Everybody has their significant others. She's never been approached in that way to be even, I guess, have an actual good relationship with somebody. So once he kind of came to her and was like trying to date her, she did it with open arms because she just craved that love that everybody else had without, you know, just being blindly in it, not realizing how bad he treats her. She's stuck into that relationship and not feeling like she's good enough. During this whole time, they have these traumatic experiences that happen a lot with the press. The press is a heavy, heavy thing in this fanfic. It reminded me a lot of, like, because the author discussed about how the press is so bad in the UK and the paparazzi is ruthless and they just anything to get the story. And it's true because I've seen that a lot, like, you know, with Princess Diana in the 90s, like how they pounded her and ultimately ended her life because of it. Like, it was so intense and bad that they were at fault for her death just to get that story. It made sense because I seen it in that aspect. So the way they were describing it, it was not far-fetched at all about how much the prophet was just always trying to figure out and be in the lives of the Golden Trio, especially Hermione. Her being female, always just being about the Golden Girl and putting her up on this pedestal to where they just always wanted to know everything about her life and just always broadcast it everywhere. And she developed anxiety from it, and she didn't like cameras because of it. Just always, everywhere she turned was people just taking pictures of her and just always her on the headlines and the Prophet. She had enough. She just couldn't take it. But the sad part about it is John, her boyfriend, John, was so about his politics and the way things looked. So in reality, he was with her because of her name. Like, she was up there. It was his way in to get to where he wanted to be in that position in the political world. It just looked like a pretty picture to him. So that's why he did not care about her at all. It was just her name. And she failed to realize that because she was just blinded by just wanting to feel something. There's a lot of trigger warnings. I feel like you should tread lightly with this because it is a lot, because Hermione does go through a lot, and there's, I think, self-harm, things like that, because of the things that she's going through. And it's sad to see her that way. But she finally feels like something because she's invited to go on this expedition to discover this cave that is said to be a myth. And her friend is like, hey, I really feel like you could be good with joining us in this expedition to try and find this cave. And she gets really interested, so she's like, yeah, I think I want to do this. And she approaches John about it, and John has just like, of course, goes crazy and is like, no, I don't want you leaving. Why are you going to leave me? And it just makes it all about him. She's just like, no, I want to do this. Like, this is good for me to do. Like, I know you want to do your politics, but it's not always all about you. Like, she had a voice. She didn't stand too much for her voice. But at this point, she was finally able to kind of like, look, stand her ground and be like, I'm leaving. And he threatened her and was just like, well, then I won't probably be here when you come back. And she was just like, well, whatever. Like, she knew it would probably affect her because some part of her felt like she did love him, but she felt like she needed to leave. So she ends up leaving, and comes to find out when she goes on this expedition, she comes across Draco Malfoy, because Draco Malfoy was also invited to this expedition. Not only was he invited to this expedition, he is actually the sponsor for the expedition. So he is sponsoring this whole thing. And she's just like, what the heck? Like, she was not expecting him to be there. They come across each other. I feel like at this point, they don't like... It's not like she despises him. She just hasn't seen him for a while. But the way he acts towards her is just like he still feels ill towards her. And she's like, what the hell is his problem? And she overhears him talking to her friend that invited her and was like, hey, I don't want her to come. And she's like, why? Like, she's here. I've invited her here, and I'm not going to tell her like to go back. She's here after all the times I begged her to come. He's like, no, she can't be here. I don't want her to be here, and all this stuff. Finally, they come to the conclusion that she's staying. And he has to deal with it. Throughout this whole expedition, you have them kind of like bickering back and forth. The true enemies, basically. They definitely are enemies in this one, and you see it in their dynamic throughout the expedition. And it's funny how they end up playing games with each other, but like he'll stare at her and she'll stare at him, but then they'll stare until one of them looks away, and then they'll kind of be like, oh, I win, that kind of thing. That goes on for a while, and as that's happening, they start to develop a relationship, not romantically, just it's a relationship. Like, she becomes more open with him and tries to kind of get into his head, kind of like, let's clear the air, trying to, but he's very standoffish, and he doesn't want to, he's just like, no. And she doesn't understand why, but eventually they do end up getting together. It really does a great job of developing that. Does a very good job of not making it feel random. It feels natural. That whole first part basically revolves around that. And then you go into the second part where they actually come back from the expedition. And this is where it's like they have to face everybody, because now they know it won't work, their relationship, because of how he's perceived and how she's perceived. It's like he's the bad boy Death Eater that is at fault for everything bad that happened during the war. She's the heroine, So having them two mix is just not a good idea. So they try to be in secret with their relationship in part 2. It's sad because it's like they're living in hiding and trying to sneak their relationship. And she hasn't told Ron and Harry yet. None of them know, but they know something's up with her. Like, something's different about her. She tries to live her life normally, and John, of course, tries to get up in her life again and tries to just get himself involved, and she's just over it. They go through their time there just trying to make their relationship work, and it's just like everything is against them, and it's so sad how it can never just make it work. Even though how bad they want it, it's like either it's with their friends or it's with the tabloids. And the tabloids, they're constantly trying to figure out what's going on. They end up finding out that he actually was on the expedition with her. So now they're questioning that. And they're like, oh, what do you have this relationship with Draco Malfoy? And she's like, what are you talking about? We were just there together. It doesn't mean anything, blah, blah, all that stuff. Finally, it's revealed during that time that they actually were together. And I believe there's like a photo that was taken. I don't know. I don't know if it's part 3 when that happens. I don't know. But there's basically 3 parts. So they end up leaving together. When they leave, they try to have their own time together. You know, she takes like a week off. She misses him because they keep hiding and not the ideal situation. So they end up leaving, and they kind of do it to where it's separate ways. That way the tabloids, anything, they won't try and follow them, or they won't see how they're together at certain points. So she'll take the train this way, he'll take the train this way, whatever, and then they'll meet up. And I think they went to France, and they stayed there in hiding for like a week. During the time that they were transitioning to go to there was a time that they stayed in a hotel beforehand, and they came outside together, and Draco decided to kiss her, and a photographer was able to capture that. And that was put into the Daily Prophet. So when they came back, she came back to her house being ransacked and pictures of them all over her bed. She's like, what the hell is all this? And she's freaking out. She calls Draco. Then she's like, I need to tell my friends before they see on the Daily Prophet. She gets too nervous. She doesn't tell them. She waits till the next day. It's on the Daily Prophet in the morning. She comes to confront her Harry and Ron are livid. And Jenny as well. They're all just, how can you be with Draco? Like, what are you doing? Like, that's not like you. And she's trying to defend herself the whole time. She's like, you just don't understand. He's not the same how he used to be. You don't understand nothing. I'm sorry, I wanted to tell you, but they just aren't having it, and they blow her off. And they are just not the best friends in this fic at all. Like, it's really sad how their friendship is just like not portrayed at all how you wish it would be portrayed, because it's just they're not there for her, and it's so sad. But yeah, she's left to be feeling alone again, because the only people she ever had was her friends. And now they're not even there for her and backing her up or anything. They don't want to hear it. All they know is like, you're with Malfoy. Like, what is your problem? And then just they feel betrayed because she's with him, but they don't even listen to anything she has to say. And she feels so alone about it. She just has these episodes that she goes through, and it's so sad. Throughout the time that they were on their expedition, and as they were getting close in their relationship, her and Draco, Hermione reveals something about a blood curse that she has, which is interesting. I feel like they kind of got this from the Astoria Greengrass, how, you know, Draco is actually with his Astoria, and, you know, she ends up having this blood curse. But I think it's interesting how they have that in here with Hermione. But Hermione ended up developing this blood curse because she was struck by one of the Death Eaters during the war, and from then on she's had issues that she found out, like she kept having these like blood clots out of nowhere in her body, and then finding out she had this blood mutation, and she needed to take potions for it. She was being treated for all that stuff throughout all those years after the war, and she reveals that to Draco, and Draco freaks out because he wants to obviously have her be better, and he's like, look, I have a team of people who can help. And at this point, she's just done. She's gone through all that, and she's gone through ups and downs of hope of getting rid of this, and she hasn't. So she comes to the conclusion that she just has to live with this until she does demise. So it's like she is tired, but now that she's brought this on to Draco is very stubborn. He's like, no, like he wants what he wants, and he loves her, so he wants to do anything he can for her. So he's like, just let me do this for you. So she lets him, but it's sad because what they go through, it's very real, and things that happen in real life, and you really put yourselves in their shoes, because you want to do whatever you can for your loved one. Like, you don't want them to suffer, you don't want them to go through any of that, but you also have to think about them in that predicament and how they actually are suffering by going through these tests and going constantly. They were in like the hospital for like months, and she was just tired, and she was at one point just there doing it for him, not even for her. It was really like heart-wrenching to see them go through that real life situation, ultimately left with no answers and still trying to figure out what's going on. And it was just, they finally kind of gave up. Draco not so much in that sense, but it was, he decided to do his own research because he's very smart and he was really good at potions. So he kind of felt like it was up in his hands now because he couldn't trust the hospitals anymore. The whole time they were in the hospital, they transferred like to 2 different hospitals. They had this doctor that was treating her, and they wanted to keep this under wraps, obviously, not having the press involved and stuff like that. The sad part about it is greed. People are disgusting. The doctor didn't care. He wanted the recognition. He wanted it was a rare disease that she had. That was 1. And then it was the Golden Girl. That was 2. So it's like, this is good for him, for his notoriety. So he promised not to spread the word, but eventually it did. And there was a paparazzi that was outside the hospital when they left and got a picture of them. That was like the last straw. They were done. They escaped. And I think at that point, Hermione ended up obliterating that photographer. I'm not sure. Like, they were just done. They were just so done with all this press and just constant, and it was just disgusting. All the press that they were getting was just bad. The whole time that they're together, John and his dad William were just trying to destroy Draco. They did not like Draco at all. They didn't understand why he was being treated the way he was within the society, because he was just an ex-Death Eater that should be in Azkaban for the rest of his life. In this fanfic, they came to an agreement where he had, like, I think he was in Azkaban for like 2 years and was basically on probation for like the next whatever years. And throughout those years, he had to, he would put on these parties at the manor and to be in good grace with people, basically. And he was not always there, but barely ever at those parties. But he hosted those parties so people from the ministry and things like that could come, I guess, just bask in his riches and just take advantage of everything that he had. And John and William just didn't understand why that was even okay or why that was happening. So the whole time, were trying to figure out a way to destroy him by like money laundering and trying to make it look like he was just stealing money and so much of things. And they end up finding that out. Hermione, I think, finds that out by somebody. I can't remember. They end up having to go to court, like, because they talk to the minister about it. A situation happens in the office, and John intervenes into that meeting that they're having with the minister because they were trying to figure out how to like protect Draco and not have it happen anymore. He can't use defensive spells at all. If he does, straight to Azkaban. So he physically can't with his wand, or it's actually he's not even able to do it at all. And he can't go against his probation, anything, causing fights, anything. Like, he cannot do anything like that, because anything that he does, he'll be sent straight to Azkaban, because he is what is called a Citizen 9. The Citizen 9 is one of the highest fugitives. He has to be really careful. So there's a moment where they're in a meeting with the minister, and the minister leaves, and then John tries to like barge in when the minister's in there. He's like, look, we had a meeting, blah, blah, blah. The minister's like, look, I gotta leave. There's something happening over here, because his secretary told me, hey, told him to get out because there's something going on that's important. And he's like, I'm gonna leave you guys all here, but better just stay there until I come back. That idea, right? John ends up basically trying to get under Draco's skin, and Draco and Hermione try leaving. Hermione's like, look, let's go, because Hermione knows. Like, she knows John. Like, she's been with him. He's an asshole. He's literally trying to poke the bear. And Draco tries to be the bigger person and just not react. So he tries leaving, but then he says one thing that just pisses him off. It's something about Hermione. And he turns around and just punches the shit out of John. And then from then on, they tussle back and forth, punching whatever. They come in there and Aurors show up and they grab Draco and he's gone. Hermione's freaking out, basically because she knows what's gonna happen. It's like they're most likely gonna just put him into Azkaban, and Draco is just like, he's done. Like, he knows that if he stays with Hermione, he feels like he's gonna ruin her life. So this is probably the best thing for her. He loves her, but this is a way for her to be free, in a way. So he acts rebellious. Like, the whole time he's just acting like Draco. The Daily Prophet captures him in a photo. He's like smiling in the photo, looking up with hooded eyes. He's like grinning in the picture. Like, yeah, like blood on his face, everything. Feeding with them what they want, because they describe him in this way. He's gonna give it to them. He's done. And Hermione tries every which way to try and get him out of there. They actually go to court. They're able to get his sentence all the way down to only a month in Azkaban instead of the rest of his life. Even with that, though, Hermione freaks out because she knows how much Azkaban affected him, and she goes kind of crazy about it. She's like, tries to figure out a way to get him out of that situation by proving that John and William aren't good people and they're the bad ones. She tries to find proof and she really can't. The one proof I guess she has is the wife, John's mom and William's wife, because the way they treat their women is just horrible. When she even tries to go as low as going to their house and tries meeting up with them to talk to them, and they act like such assholes to her. She comes across the wife, John's mom. You could tell she's at this place that she's like trapped. She feels she's not happy. She doesn't even talk, and she knows things. So they kind of glance at each other. She tells her like she's there, you know, if she needs help. Like, she understands. She ends up being the downfall of John and William. They end up finding out, getting the proof that they need because of her, and they're the ones who end up getting sent to Azkaban for the rest of their life. And while Draco, I think his last day when he comes out is when they go in. Like, finally, the assholes get what they deserve. Once they're in Azkaban, he's out. The thing is, Hermione leaves. She escapes. During the time when she tries to say goodbye to him when he goes in to ask him, and she's like, look, I love you, trust me. And I'm just like, huh? I don't know what she means, but she kind of lets the tabloids just create their own narrative and make it look like she's the bad person. Like, she wants the attention on her, not him. She does an interview with Rita Skeeter. That way the attention just stays off Draco and it goes to her. So she portrays his narrative like she is the reason. She broke up with him basically and left him. He went to Azkaban and she's done. They make it look like she's like the bad person at that point, even though he's also the bad one in their eyes too. So, but she ends up leaving. She doesn't tell anybody where she goes. She ends up going to New York. She's in New York for like the next 8 months, even while Draco gets out. And Draco has no idea where she is, because if you remember, she said to trust her. She has it set up to where he goes to a friend of theirs and stays far away with a friend. One of their friends that was part of that expedition, he stays with her in hiding, and she lives her life in New York. The tabloids never go over there, but they finally do end up finding her. But she times it precisely to where they'll get pictures of her living her life over there like nothing. She just ignores the cameras, but that's not as intense as it was in the UK. She works at a bookstore in New York and lives in an apartment there. Finally, she gets like this letter that says that he needs you or something like that, which obviously is Draco. So she goes to that friend's house that he's at. They finally meet each other after the 8 months that they've been apart. They have their reunion. So much love that you feel like you're like, oh, finally they're back together. But it's like they're back together and they're still in the same mess. They know they can't escape their reality of just, they can't be happy without being bombarded with this mess of the tabloids. They come up with an idea of leaving, and it was actually Draco's idea, let's seclude ourselves, let's go somewhere. And he has this house in the mountains that I think that was in their family, in the Malfoy family. But he sets it all up for her because one of their conversations that they had when they were on the expedition was things that she dreamed of, like a house in the mountains, having the beach, and things like that she was talking about. So he's basically making her dreams come true. It was really romantic. They go there and they escape. They basically don't talk to anybody after, like they're in their own world, and they finally could have their love story in their own world in that mountain. But she no longer sees her friends anymore, which she doesn't even count them as her friends anymore because they're a bunch of assholes. The way they acted with her, it was horrible. The good thing about, just one thing with Harry at least, Harry was able to help here and there for when they were during the case for Draco, or for him not to go to Azkaban. Harry helped a lot with that situation. He still was against their relationship. When they're there, they feel like even though they feel like they're safe, they still have to feel like they live in fear in a way. They just, Draco put a lot of wards on the house, and Hermione was just very much like, oh my gosh, but I feel like just scared because they're always going to be there to find them. Finally, they live there so long, they start walking around and go into the nearby village. She ends up getting a job at the school there, being a teacher. They end up living their life. Like, it's really nice. You go through that process of them. And then just a lot of stories that just their love and things that they do, and just how them two just together is just so beautiful. And the whole time you're literally in fear of what the ending will be in this fic, because remember, throughout this whole time she still has this disease. And when they are secluded in this house, Draco does make like a room to where he's able to research it and figure out what's cursed and try to help her like get better. The whole time she's deteriorating. She really is. She's just getting weaker and weaker. She keeps having nosebleeds. She sometimes has fainting spells. She had to stop teaching for a little bit because she ended up fainting in the classroom. Her immune system's really low, so her being around kids is like exposed to a lot of germs. She ends up getting sick, and it's not good. Draco freaks out. Draco's fear is for her to leave, obviously, for him to be alone. He doesn't want her to leave him, in that way. And it's sad because you don't see the hope. You don't see you don't see the hope for them at all because of this. And they never talk about how long they're there, but they do. So they say this, months went by and now years. It's still very what's gonna happen? Is she gonna live? That's the biggest part. That's just finally they I don't want to spoil the ending. Look, okay, I'll leave it up to you guys. If you watch this and you want to read it and not know what the ending of this fanfic is, then if you don't want to know, then just stop watching now. If you want to know, I will tell you. I'm gonna say it now, but I'm just giving spoiler is coming up. I'll just say what's gonna happen. Finally, there's this part at the end where they go into the town. There's a wedding going on, and Hermione's like, oh my god, and they watch the wedding. Hermione cries. Draco notices. It dawns on him, why haven't they gotten married yet? It's inevitable. Why? They've already been acting like the married couple the whole time, how long they've been there, living there together and just with each other and loving each other. Why not get married? So when they come back to the house, he asks her to marry him that night, and she's like, what? Shocked, whatever. She's like, I don't want you to do this just because you think this is what I want. He's like, no, I want this. I don't know why I've never even said it a long time ago. We should have done this forever ago, but I want to do this now because I want you forever. She gets excited and it's like, yeah, okay, and then she wants the plan, but he's like, no, let's do it tonight, now. So they oh man. Okay. So they end up getting married, and he writes vows for her, and she, oh gosh, I'm gonna cry. And she expresses herself to him, and then oh my god. It's been a while since I freaking talked about a fic that's it made me cry. So, So they end up getting married, and then they make love. Oh gosh. And then they're hugging each other. Oh my god. It goes to like memories that they basically talk about the dream that she had that night. Oh my gosh. It says after they get married and they're you know, they make love and they lay in the bed together. Oh my gosh. I think it goes like to memories of his that he ends up having. Like it goes to him, and it shows well when they're laying together afterwards. Okay, he's looking at her and she like falls asleep, and he's like watching her, afraid of her like not breathing, right? So he watches her breathing, like, you know, and then it goes to, oh my god, I can't even think straight. It says something about that he looks at her and then he looks at her breathing and she looks like she's like dead, like basically. And then it says Hermione had her last dream that night, and it talks about her dream, and she sees Harry, Ron, and Ginny reuniting, and you know, and then she's with her parents, and after that it's like, then it says Hermione took her last breath. Because, oh gosh, and I read that part, I'm like, oh my god. It was like you knew most likely that was gonna happen, but you had hope. You really had hope for them to find something to save her. And now you feel like now Draco's alone, so you go back to that, you're like, oh my god, like the worst. And then it goes back to where it started, his interview with that reporter, and she's like, oh my god, she's gone. He's like, he said this was a year ago. So what happened a year ago? He's still at that house. The reporter notices that he doesn't flinch at all. He doesn't, no emotion, nothing. He's basically he's good at occluding, you know. So the whole time he's telling the story, she recognizes that his expression doesn't change. The camera decided to freak out. Okay, I'm at the ending what I was just gonna say. So I'm gonna compose myself. So he's talking to the reporter, and he's just like, look, she says, why now? Why did you decide to tell the story now after all these years, 8 years, whatever? And he's like, because they still won't leave her alone. What triggered this was because they found out that they kept trying to look for Hermione. They were always trying to look for Hermione. They knew a way to actually get to her was to try and get to her parents. Because, you know, she obliviated her parents, but now they were trying to look for them. Because they knew if they look for her parents, then they'll probably find her. So when they do that, that's where Draco gets, like, that's the last straw. He's pissed. He's like, look, I'm done with this. So then he agrees to have this interview with this reporter and tells the whole story. That way they'll finally leave her the fuck alone. She's like, you really think that's gonna happen? Like, how, you know, he's like, this is what's, you know, this is gonna be what's it. They finally will stop. And their whole goal this whole entire time was for the press to just leave them alone. He's like, look, she's gone now, and just stop looking for her. So that was the whole point of doing this. Come to find out, this reporter is actually the daughter, or no, niece of one of the girls that were on the expedition with them too, so that was interesting. She agrees to tell the story. They trust her. There's things that he says that, like, keywords, and I remember I was going on TikTok too, and people were like highlighting stuff, and I was like, that makes sense. And he's like, huh. He talks about Hermione like she passed, but then he also talks about her present time. It's kind of like, But then that's not far-fetched for people who are grieving, obviously, the loss of a loved one, like, or a loss of their other half, right? They were like, well, we wanted this, and we want this, and they're just like, we feel better. Like, just things that, because, like, they're still around. Because he said to her, like, she's still in this house, like, she's still, you know, but it's left up for interpretation, really, if you think about it. So she agrees and leaves, and when she's leaving the house, sometime in the story, there's like, he makes like there's a garden that Hermione was making, right, in the house, in the outside of the house, and the one thing that's fixed, she loved oranges, so they made an orange tree, and all this stuff, right? So when she leaves, the reporter leaves, looks back at the garden, she notices Draco's out there in the garden, and he's up looking at the sky, and he's like having the sun hit him, and with his eyes closed, and he's right next to the orange tree. I'm just like, oh, I'm telling you so many things that just like pull at your heart. It's like, cause he's grieving, right? Like his lover is gone, right? But then as she's watching him, she notices, she's like, wait a minute, you see a figure of like a girl walking behind him with like long curly hair, and she's like, am I looking at this correctly? She puts a hand on his shoulder, and then she's like, am I seeing ghosts right now? But what makes her realize it's not, because Draco does like this and holds her hand, and you never see her face, but you see her leaning on his shoulder, and the reporter's like, oh my god. And then it kind of ends that way, and it's just like, wait, so is she alive? I'm like, what? So then the reporter kind of goes back to the story, and it was like, wait a minute, and it was going through different things that he told in the story that made sense. There was a moment in the conversation that Hermione and Draco was having before, like a drunken conversation. She was like, the only way they'll leave me alone is if I fake my death. So she's like, oh my god, this is the perfect thing to do for them to finally leave them alone. You find out that it ends up being a happily ever after. It's like, oh my god, so she's not dead. It's just their plan was to fake her death, and that way they'll finally just lay it to rest. And that was just like, oh my god. I'm like, you just put me through this like heartbreak for them to just be like, but and then you're like, oh, was just so well done. Like, I love that. Like, thank you. You took my heart, you like threw it on the ground, you stomped on it, and but then you kind of was like, oh, but here you go, and like, right, here you go. It gave it back to me all nicety, or no, gave me a new one. That's basically what happened. I'm like, so it was like, you really didn't predict this ending. You really didn't. Like, it was so good. And it was just like, if you really pay attention, it makes you want to read it again to just be like, oh. But there was people on TikTok who actually highlighted certain, look, this, proving that because it's like left up for interpretation, right? Because it's like, wait, is she alive? No, she's alive. And then people were like highlighting, look, because it says this, and then remember it says this here, and it's like, throughout his little interview at the end with her, it's like, it makes sense. Wow. Like, what an amazing love story this was. What an amazing fic. Like, oh my god. And this, the way this was written was like pure poetry. Everything that she was describing in their love story was so poetic. It was so beautifully done. And I feel like I've said that so many times with these fanfics. These people freaking like just make these amazing freaking fanfics. But no, this one, I think the way this one was written was probably like my favorite. The favorite way it just was written so beautifully and so like powerful, and just you can't help but you feel so hard for them, and you just want them, you root for them so much, and you just love them together, and it's just so beautiful, and everything just like goes together just perfectly. And then things that they're just feeding you here end up kind of being completed at the end of the story, and it just ties it all together. And I love when stories do that. It's very well thought out process. It was not randomly written. It was thought out from the beginning to the end. Again, I can't pick between any of these fanfics anymore. This has just been up there, put up top again. Like, so well done. Love. And I can't recommend this one enough. If you want to feel hard, read this one. It will make you feel. It will make you just like pulled so many different ways. It's such an adventure. I like to describe this one as a poetic love story. Poetically tragic love story. That's what this one is. Poetically tragic love story. I don't know what my next week's gonna be. I feel like I want to kind of go back to time travel. So I think I've started to read Yesterday Timeless. So I will be on to that fic. We'll see how that goes. And I'm excited to go travel in time. Well, thank you for watching my video, and I will see you next time. Bye.